translate while flying. My name is Oren. I'm Managing Director of CloudNow, which is the cloud unit in Yale Software Group. A bit about me. Married plus 3 delinquent. Over 20 years in the infrastructure and data protection. I don't have any real choice. I have 3 delinquent at home. I do lecture about parents and kids about bullying and cyberbullying and digital awareness. And recently I started managing the cloud platform in Yale Group. So, what we're going to talk about, and I thank Shachar for a lot of things he stole from my presentation. The first one is about the challenges, the cloud challenges that we do have. The second one is the shared responsibility, and no, not what you think about when you talk about cloud shared responsibility, but we are going to tackle that. And the third one is cloud protection. So let's start. So, what are my type of threats? And I'm not going to handle all of them, but I'm going to focus on some of them. The first of all is data breaches. The second is misconfiguration and change control. Lack of security architecture strategy. Insufficient identity, access, or key management within the entire organization. Account hijacking. Insider threat, and there are some more. I took it from the CSA release, but I'm going to talk about those 3, which is, to my belief, are the more important assets in our organization, and we need to know how to handle them. Regarding data breaches, this report just talks about a fraction of what we know. But as you can see, the data breaches are increasing by the year and not decreasing. And for that is the same as I heard a phrase a couple of days ago. You go to the bank because there is the money there. So you go to the data because that's what's important to the company. And that's the main attack for all vendors. It's not just crypto mining or having increased security or impersonation. It's the data. That's the main asset. The new ransomware encrypts your data eventually. Inside of threat concept. And Shachar demonstrated how important it is. But if you scale down the entire organization and you map it, and you do asset mapping in the terms of roles, identities, and what do you allow them to do? You see that there are a lot of privileged IT users, not just administrators. You know, I'm doing a certification about cloud security now, and there is a concept. How many root admins you need to have in an account, a global account? Do you know?
0.
3. You know why? Zero trust policy. If somebody is rogue, you need another one to break it even. But you need 3 because you need to have odd numbers. That's the minimum. More of that, it's compromising. Less of that is dangerous. Contractors, outside, temporary workers are high risk also in the terms of identity. You gave them access, but you don't provision the access. You don't provision if they're allowed to do what they're doing. Are they doing it as in alignment to what you allow them, and do you follow them? Executive managers, a lot of them has the notion that they need to be domain admin. Because if they're not, something is offended. I used to work a decade ago in Discount Bank. And when it came to the my first role was the Active Directory. The first scan I did, that all branches had branch managers had domain admin. Now this is a unified work surroundings. I removed everybody and I got a mail from the CEO saying, what the hell did you do? But that's the way. Lack of cloud security, architecture, and strategy. And I do emphasize architecture because it's not only strategy, it's the way that you look about your organization. You want to know that you have shadow IT, and you do, but you need to know it, and you need to map it. And it's not only your servers, it's sometimes just a service that you buy, but it is there and you need to manage it. security controls. It's not just the enforcement, as Shachar talked before, that prevents. You need to make DevOps works with security controls while developing SDLC in the whole life cycle. You want to map your assets. You have to map your assets. I recently was in a session with the Oracle's CSO, and with all his history and stuff, he said, my first job, my first role when I came to the job is map the assets. And amazingly enough, there was a lot of assets he didn't know that exists. The standalone development or surroundings of a developer, a DBA that copied the data for just manipulating it because he didn't want to work on production, a Kubernetes environment that is fast deployed and fast destroyed. Enforce identity management. And it's not just the security, it's the management and the identity itself. We need to look at it as we need to have eyes where we don't have the capabilities to do so. The identity management enforces us as the role players to create the visibility. Not necessarily enforce or prohibit or block, but at least to have the visibility. But if you don't have it, you will never know who is doing what. And the last noun is know your crown jewels. Each company has its own crown jewels, and Shachar said it very, very elegantly. You need a change advisory board or a committee to decide business-wise what are your crown jewels. The moment you have those, you can scale down to what you want to do about it. But if you don't know them, they will probably be either hacked or offended or misconfigured. So, should we or shouldn't we go to the cloud? Well, I state that we do, yet it's not magic. There is work to be done, and we need to do it. And first of all, it's the shared responsibility model. Now, if we just take a pause and look at what the definition of shared responsibility, basically, it is the dictation of security obligations. It doesn't say anything beside that. And you need to take it in back of your mind. Eventually, the shared responsibility does not say you need to do something. You just need to take ownership about it, and you need to do it properly. So, can we know, and can we answer about our responsibilities? Do we know? Where is our customer data? Have we encrypted it in rest or in transit? Do you have access control about it? Do you know where it is the backups, the restore? Do you know it is intact? Our platforms, access management, do we have visibility? Do we have any knowledge of who has what? Do we allow it to do it? And does he align to what we allow? The fact that you have admin permissions does not necessarily mean that you have the full scale to do whatever you want. I can give you granular access to do specific tasks, but not all of them. That requires admin, but it not necessarily means that you have root on all the accounts. So, have you asked yourself the following questions? Do you know what is done on your systems? Really know what your system is built from? What are the processes? Who is consuming what? The access, the granular or even not granular privileges that you provide. Some of the weirdest things, and I'm doing a lot of data analysis, is the fact that people leave the default database template on. It is easy to do role segregation, privileges escalation, because you have the default, it's called Tiger or whatever. Do you really know? Have you implemented controls? No, and I don't mean SIEM SOC solutions. Basic controls. Do you have logs reflected, WAF detected, something that alerts you that you can have non-repudiation process about it, a basic one? What is your concept about protection model. You're talking about zero trust policy? Or do you have any perimeter defense against an insider or outsider attack? Have you implemented the proper monitoring? And now it doesn't mean you have to have NOC or SOC in sight, but you need to have eyes. And it's a different eyes for any organization or any concept. Who is controlling data deletion? This is a very unique aspect because we are talking about data, but we never stop thinking about what to do when data is obsolete or when we need to delete it. One of the key factors when you go and ask cloud vendor is data deletion process. Now I can say that each vendor has its own data deletion. The safe data deletion I know is shredding the disks, but no cloud vendor is actually going to allow you going to their data center and shred the disks repeatedly for several times to make sure that there is no data. So you need to decide what is your data deletion process, and you need to enforce it, and you need to verify it that you do not leave any leftovers. Is it an adequate activity log? Access, prohibited access, decline, failed, success, allowed, anything. Most of our logs are dealing with I didn't have access. But what about those who did? Are they allowed? Insider threat module is talking about the fact that, and it is aligned with a UEBA concept, that the fact that you're allowed to do so, it's good. But if you're doing it in the wrong environment and in the not appropriate place and time, so it's not good anymore. For example, the fact that the CEO can log to the systems at 12 at night because his peer is doing so, but if he's doing it from the boardroom instead of his office, should alert the trigger, because it's not what his peers are doing. What about the insider threat? We talked about the risk assessment, but did you ever ask yourself, how am I going to react on an insider threat? Recently there was a couple of months ago about the Tesla employee that went to the production area and deleted the code because he was not promoted. You know, there is a lot of sayings of why he did so. Eventually it's an insider threat, it's a rogue employee. So back to the zero trust policy. The fact that I'm allowing it to happen, can I cope with the results? A lot of companies I'm dealing, talking, asking, meeting, do not have a recuperation policy or incident response policy. They do have a response policy, but not business alignment. Now GDPR did a very tricky thing to business. Made the CEO responsible. But it does not define how do you recuperate from an attack. I can give you two examples. A couple of years ago, Silicon had a failover, a massive failover. The CEO did not come out to the public only after several weeks, and they've lost a lot of the credibility from their clients. When Telephone had recently the same problem, the CEO came after a couple of hours saying, hello, we have a problem, we're fixing it, we're responsible. I talked to a friend of mine, the credibility rate is not as high, decreased as in Silicon. Significant, because they maintain the credibility. Now, that is only part of the business. You need to decide what is your crown jewels, if it hacked, what you're going to do, and moreover, the visibility, the process. It's not something light, it's not just a decision. It's a foundation stone in the way you conduct your business is the recoverability. Is your data encrypted? Now I left this question because if you're talking about GDPR, and I used to deal with GDPR a lot in my previous role, that's the first question you've been asked. Have your data been encrypted? Now, on cloud, And on premise, on cloud it's easy. If you get a SaaS service, it's encrypted by default. But if you just lease and you put your data on, it's not. At least not on all vendors, it's not encrypted by default. And you need to take care of that. And the last note, do you really know where your information is? Is it only on the places you think they are? Isn't there a rogue copy somewhere? Somebody thought he wanted to do good and he copied the database to his own laptop just to play with it, but that's a data copy. And is the backup being safe? And only those who are allowed to manipulate it are there. Because if you copied your data to a backup, but it's not encrypted and everybody can change it, so it's coming back to you. So it seems very clear that we need to ensure information security with our policies and our organizations. So why doesn't that happen? He said it, 9 years before? It should have been day one, right? A company, the process, building the big building blocks from the beginning, stating security is a foundation stone. I can give you several examples. I took only 3 of them. Well, we are just in the beginning, it's not important. Well, the DevOps team are not playing along and they don't want us, securities prohibit us from doing a lot of damage, so we don't want them. The cloud vendors do take care of all the security, wrong. Possible answers. Well, information security is a blocking body, not enabling. I used to work a lot of security, and this is a sentence I heard a lot, but the matter of it is that information security is a business enabler. And as Shachar said, the fact that the CISO is a lowercase C-level, that's part of the problem. The fact that the CISO needs to be a high-level C-level, or an uppercase C-level, is because of that. He needs to understand the business. Because when he understands the business, he's contributing to the business while enforcing security. But if he's not so, he will always be led by budget and not by business. I'm a development guy, I don't know about security. Wrong answer again. Anyone can learn security in their own realms. I did a podcast with Moshe about software development lifecycle in security area. He talks about it. The fact that you have SecDevOps or DevSecOps, you can talk about it repeatedly, but eventually everybody can implement security. By the way, by default we're implementing security, but we don't treat it as if. Because we do use complex passwords. Most of us does not put the username and password on the code they develop. At least I hope not. And they don't ask for root account for any deployment. So we do have security consideration some of the times. So it's easy, just plain wrong. I don't have a budget. Wrong again, there is a lot of security efforts you can do that doesn't cost that much. It's a conceptual design, not necessarily a process or a product. Eventually, it's our responsibility to generate the visibility that needs to protect your data. And information security, eventually, if you turn it round and round, with all the SIEM, SOC, WAF, and whatever, it's information. And that is the crown jewel. You are protecting the information. That's it. So, how do you continue? Map. Map your data. Map your knowledge. Map your information surroundings. Make sure that you have visibility. Use leading standards. They've done it before you. They have a good questionnaire. Follow it. It will give you a good understanding of what you do or don't have, what you possess or you don't possess. And use either cloud, already made solutions, like security centers, binary authorization, whatever. Use it. At least consider it. You don't have to take it, but it makes your life easier if you're going to cloud, because they already did it. And let's face it, as much as we value ourselves, the amount of man hours developed in a vendor type solutions is by far more than what we will ever do in our life. So, if you just work even in part of the stuff we talked about it, you will increase significantly the protection of your data. And I think for me, it will allow you to operate much more freely in the cloud environment. And it's not a safe ground. You always need to be on guard. It's not that if I did that, I'm free. I don't have to do it anymore. No. You always need to challenge your thoughts. You always need to rethink what you've done as long as you evolve. Thank you.
What is binary authorization?
Well, you can use, at least Google has it, in one of their solutions, allow you to even implement authorization in the code. Not only as a multi-factor authentication and stuff like that, you can use it as a service.
So it's like a model that you can then integrate to your code and it will do the access control?
Yeah.
Okay. That's like an example or not?
I need to take a look at it.
Okay. Thank you.